Hey, I got this question. Is there a message that we could give kids when they're growing up that would help them not to grow up antisocial? And I guess it's a message for us as well. And it turns out that there is a message we can give. And we can start off with let's say the food chain. For example, a vegetable. And the vegetable gives us energy when we eat it. And the vegetable gets its energy to grow from the sun, mainly from the sun. And the sun gets its energy from nuclear fusion. And since nuclear fusion is a fuel, so it must have some sort of limit, must have some sort of end. And if it has an end, therefore it has a beginning. And if it has a beginning, that means something else is its cause, is powering it. So let's say that the power that powers the nuclear fusion of the sun is the gravitational sea around the sun. And that energy has some sort of limit, some sort of end, and it must have a beginning. And if it has a beginning, then something else is its cause and powers it. Because if it doesn't have a beginning, then it always was. And eventually, when you keep on going, you have to come to some sort of source which doesn't have an end and doesn't have a beginning. And it's like this oneness that is in everything. Then you have the question, well, if it's this oneness that doesn't have an end, doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have a limit, doesn't have a definition, because a definition is also a limit, then how does everything else exist at the same time as this oneness? So you come to a metaphor of the mind. Picture right now inside your mind a chair. And can you also picture at the same time a tree next to the chair? And then can you picture a cottage next to the tree? You can do that, right? Now, these ideas in your mind are in a different dimension from your brain, and therefore they don't add or subtract or take away from your brain. It's the potential of your brain to be able to make unlimited pictures. So that's a metaphor how everything in the world exists inside this oneness. We are like a thought in a mind. And in fact, the entire world is just like one thought. The entire world and all of history is like one thought in the mind. And that's the first point. It starts off by following the food chain, and then we analyze how we exist inside this oneness. And the second point is that this oneness makes rules. Now, some rules, like touching a hot oven, a person can feel straight away. But other rules, if a person breaks these rules, you may not be able to recognize the consequence straight away, but there is an immediate consequence. When you do something wrong, it messes up your sense of right and wrong, it messes up your emotions, it messes up your ability to have pleasure from the simple things in life. And so if one breaks the rules, there is immediate consequences. The rules are everywhere. It's impossible to break the rules without a consequence. And the third point is that this oneness is the power of behind our mind, the power of our emotions are in a different dimension to our power to think, and our power to move. So that's three things. So this is really the first point, the second point, the third point, and the fourth point is that this oneness is also the potential. Like the energy of a tree, when it's just growing, a small baby tree, the energy for it and the potential for it to grow up into a gigantic tree, it's right there. And the same thing, your potential. When you're a baby, your potential for your whole life is right there. And this oneness is your potential, and it's right there with you, helping you fulfill and actualize your potential. And from this point, we move to the emotional part of this message, and it's about making a commitment. You see, making a commitment is something emotional. And what happens is that when you make a commitment, you draw down extra power from the oneness to be able to keep the rules and reveal your potential. After you make a commitment to keep the rules, something will happen that you will be able to do much better than you would be able without making the commitment. And the third part of this message, the first part is intellectual, it's thinking, because our thinking causes our feelings. So we start off with thinking, but then we make a commitment, and then something happens that we get much more power than we would have if we would only be thinking. And then the third part is practical, and it's about recognizing that everything that we do and say is recorded. Nowadays it's easy to relate to this because there's cameras everywhere. But the truth is that everything that we say or do is recorded in our body somewhere. It's recorded in our mind, it's recorded in our memory, it's there. See, I told this to my friend, this practical point. And what he did is he used his phone to record his kids when they were fighting. And then he said, "I'm recording you." And he showed it to them. And that was this amazing, immediate motivator for the kids to behave much better. Immediately when they saw themselves, they changed their behavior. And next time when he took out his phone to record them, they immediately changed their behavior. So if saying this message from the heart, because when you say something from the heart, it enters the heart and it becomes practical, that everything that you say and do is recorded. That practically motivates a person to actually live up and keep the rules and reveal their potential.